Hello and welcome to episode 123 of the Alfa Romeo Driver podcast, brought to you by the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. I'm Guy Swarbrick, and with me in the Chilterns above Henley-on-Thames this week to talk about the club's upcoming National Concours and to provide some general tips on Concours competitions, I have Club Finance Director and Chief Concours Judge John Timms, fellow Judge Andrew Stevens, overall 2026 Concours winner, the stunning white 1967 Duetto, and the Duetto's owner, Gary Plumb. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Guy.
So we're here to talk about Concours, and we're going to talk about a couple of different aspects. We'll talk about what the Concours is and how it's different from some of the other competitions the club operates. We're going to talk about, I believe, the current Concours champion, and we're going to talk about how the Concours actually works and how it's judged. So, John, if we can start with you.
Yeah,
we have a couple of different competitions at National Alfa Day. We have the Concours and we have Show and Shine. And what's the difference between the two?
We actually have three. There's also a modified one, which I probably should mention here.
Yeah.
But the main thing, Concours, the thing we're interested in is cars which are in factory condition, as near as damn it. So the idea is that you have a car that looks like it's come out of the factory, which means no modifications, and it needs to be presented in pretty good condition. Clearly, we're talking here about our Concours champion, which is a 60-year-old Duetto. It is not in factory condition anymore because it's been restored. And we do allow restored cars in. We have to, because nearly everything that's older than about 10 years has been restored in some way if it's in Concours condition.
Apart from 1155.
Well, there is something. Last year's Concours, there were two cars that were perfect. One is a 155 V6 and one is a Duetto. So very difficult to separate. So how old's the 155? 30-something years, isn't it now? Yeah. So that is pretty amazing. There are very, very few cars that good. Anyway, so we allow restorations. The Show and Shine allows any number of modifications to the car. So all you're really looking at is how well presented it is for that. And to be honest, a Concours winning car like the Duetto could enter the Show and Shine because it is pretty shiny. So a lot of work has gone into making it a show car. So that's the main difference.
And there's an age cut-off for both of them?
There is a 10-year cut-off. We don't allow anything in is less than 10 years to either competition. In the Concours, we actually break it up into 10-year chunks, and every year we move the boundary by 1 year, so that the newest section is whatever that would be, 2006 to 2016, roughly, for the next Concours, and so on. And it goes back, and there are 6 classes. And at some point, we'll have to do 7 classes because there'll be so many things in the pre-66 or whatever section. The other thing that is worth mentioning is modified. That does allow newer cars. So if you've got a less than 10-year-old modified car, again, they're going to look for how it's presented, but what the modifications are, what they've achieved is what they're interested in. So there is another competition. I think there's 3 prizes in that. There's 3 in Show and Shine, and there's 6 different classes in Concours and an overall winner.
I did have a conversation with Alan a couple of years ago about what constituted modified. He seemed to be quite happy with the fact that I had black badges on my Tonale instead of chrome ones.
Yeah.
And that constituted modified.
He actually told, because I ran a 159 four-wheel drive diesel with a modified map, and he told me I could have entered it. It's just that the rest of the car was not that presentable. So.
Yeah, I don't think I would have won with my black badges, but I would have been eligible.
So he allows anything in modified. So anything from, James Hanson's well-known GTA replica Giulia, modern Giulia, to all sorts of, there's a fantastic Stelvio last year, if I remember rightly. I can't remember what else there was, but there's older things. There's lots of Mitos that have been modified. So that class exists as well. And pretty well any of those classes should suffice for most people who've got a show-worthy car.
And we'll come back to some of the admin later on, because I think there's a couple of changes for this year in terms of...
Potentially, yes.
Yes, potentially. Okay. And you're, as well as being involved in the admin side of it, you are one of the judges as well.
I am, in theory, the chief judge. People like Andrew Stevens know, Giuliettas, 101 Giuliettas, 105 series cars extremely well. And we have other judges like Phil Gotts, usually, who has owned all sorts of different Alfas, so, 75s, Alfettas, I think, and so on. And, I've had Suds, as has Phil, through to 159s, 156s, and so on. And there's a lot of things I do know. So I can guide people in different directions, but we try to get judges with different expertise. It's difficult with Alfa because there are so many models. We have 32 registrars which tends to suggest there are 32
32
families.
registers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm two registrars. So.
Yeah, okay. 32 registers, fewer registrars, but the 32 points to the fact that there are 32 different sets of models that you need to know.
Different ranges of vehicles.
Because they could turn up. And even worse, we once had one of those little vans, sure, one of the perfect restorations, but no idea if it's supposed to look like that because, who knows?
Well, that brings us, I think, quite neatly on to Andrew. So we've got a field full of shiny old cars.
Yes.
How do we go about deciding which one's the worthy winner in each category, obviously?
Well, first up, you might have guessed I'm Australian, and I'm very grateful for you laying on some Australian weather for us today while we're talking. I grew up around old cars. My father primarily was Jaguars in Western Australia, and the car scene always had a strong concourse following. All the different sort of marque groups used to get together and there would be a big annual local concourse, plus the individual clubs ran concourses. And my father was deeply involved in it, so I became deeply involved in it from a young age, in my teenage years sort of thing, having been infected with the car disease. To sort of explain about what you do when you want to judge a car, which is what we're after. The first thing is if you stand back, if you look at Gary's lovely Duetto here, if you stand back, 10 metres away from a car, you can look at it and say, okay, first up, is the car sitting right? Is it down on one side? Is it sunk at the back? Is it sitting too high, sitting too low? And you just get an overall impression of the car. It's not a foolproof method by any means, because some cars sneak up on you and the closer you look at them, you see, wow, this is actually, it doesn't stand out when you look at it in a line of cars. But when you look at the detail, you open the bonnet or look underneath and you go, this is actually much better than we expected. One of the cars, and that is Tony, I can't remember his surname at the moment, GTV6. Very original. He's had it for a long time. He's a car detailer. It doesn't scream overly bright and shiny and polished, but when you look at it close, it's extremely well prepared and very original and very correct, and he's very fussy about that. But
and it is about originality and correctness rather than
bling.
I like that car.
It's sort of, you might not be a fan of Duettos, but you look at Gary's car and you have to appreciate.
Who's not a fan of Duettos?
I'm biased.
I know, everyone has.
But we could have picked another example.
But you can look at Gary's car and you look under the bonnet and you see the amount of detail and effort that's gone into making sure it's got the correct style fittings. All 105 series cars come with a plastic cover clipped over the distributor to waterproof it, but if you ever want to adjust the points or anything like that, it's a pain to get on and off afterwards. So every 105 series car, the guy pulls the distributor cover off after 18 months and throws it over his shoulder, and you never see it again. I know when I worked at Classic Alfa, they had a box of them, of old ones. But anyway, that's by the way. It's just little detail things like that you, as you get closer and look closer at the car, you look at the fit of the panels, at the wheels and tyres are all presented all the same style, or the correct size. You're not worried about things like stuff like seat belts and fire extinguishers and stuff like that. They are not judged. So you could have an 8C pre-war Alfa and have seat belts in it, and that won't be a penalty for it. But you are looking for it if somebody's whacked it through with a big coach bolt through the sill, and then that's not really well presented. But if it's been done neatly and with respect to the car, that's fine.
So those are the kind of things you're looking for. Yeah. How do you make that objective? How do you end up with a way of scoring one car versus another so that everybody's happy with the result?
That's the $64 question, or the £64 question, or whatever you want to call it. There are certain things you have. We have a score sheet. The cars start nominally with 100 points, and rather than starting at 0 and gaining 9 points for this and 8 points for that and stuff, the cars start at 100 points and then get deductions. So you won't get deductions we expect the cars to be used and driven. So if there's a bit of dust on it, the odd little sort of bug stuck on the front from driving to the show or something, that's not a problem. That won't be penalised. But if you've got rust spots showing through the sills and lots of stone chips all over the front and stuff, then that's when you start getting, knocking off half a point here, half a point there. If you've got 4 mismatched tyres, then that's going to be a deduction. If you open the door and there's a big cut in the seats and things like that. There's always the balance between a car that's 60 years old, and if somebody turned up with a Duetto Spider that had done 5,000 miles from you and lived in a darkened, dehumidified garage all its life and rolled up at the concourse and parked it next to Gary's, it wouldn't look as lovely and shiny as Gary's car, but it would be a real challenge to differentiate between the two of them.
And it's worth saying what we actually do is we give extra marks for patina and a few other things like that.
When you say you give extra marks, do you add marks on or do you take fewer marks off?
No, we add them on. We take marks off.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we add a few on. In fact, we start at 90 and then we add things.
Yeah.
I think we start at 90 or 95. But
95,
so you can't get more than 100, basically.
Right.
But there's patina and specific historic interest as well, if it's been maintained. So if it's done something important in its life, it could be.
That's the thing.
And it
also,
still has the record of that. That could still be there.
Richard Wigley's Giulietta Sprint a few years ago, which I think is, it's a Giulia Sprint, but it's one of the first cars when they went from the 750 series Giuliettas to the 101 series Giulias. And it had some interesting transitional features, with all these cars. They don't stop on Friday with one style of car. It's got the sixth 101 series engine or something. It's very early in the transition between 750 series cars and 101 series cars. And Richard had all that documented, and he'd gone to the effort to, they have a sort of cloth trim and in some sections of the car, and he'd chased around Italy to try and find the original correct pattern trim and stuff. So all of that thing is all part of the story of the car. It's like the 155 that was sort of line ball with Gary's Duetto last year. He has owned it
since almost from new, I think.
And he has put an enormous amount of effort into preserving it, like he's done with his other cars that he has.
So the interesting thing about that car is it's a relatively modern car. It's got plastics and things under the bonnet. And we've seen some gorgeous Bruce McLaren's 166. It's absolutely stunning, but it's got all sorts of little marks scuff marks on the plastic, unfortunately, which lose him the odd point.
Cool. Yeah.
But other than that, those cars are fantastic.
But it's nice that you can get to the point where you're comparing two cars as different as a 155 and a Duetto.
Or a 166 even.
Yeah, and it comes down to
tiny differences.
Tiny differences, yeah.
So we said the theoretical 100 maximum. What did you score last year, Gary?
I think it was 100. Yes.
And Mitch did.
Yeah.
Mitch did. So we won't name names. What's the lowest score we've had in a club concours?
Well, if you go back far enough, quite clearly it's something called Minty.
We'll ignore the Top Gear special.
Either that or Richard Hammond's thing, which didn't arrive under its own steam. I don't know whether or not they penalised it. They should have done, because cars must arrive under their own steam, which is why they might have bug splutter and things like that. Nearly everybody, of course, details them when they show up, and that's a good thing to do. You should also present the car. Gary always presents his car with documentation laid out in the boot, which is...
That is a documentation. Presentation is ultimately a big part. I mean, whether you're showing cars or in a flower show or a dog show or whatever it happens to be, they're all ultimately the same style of thing, and presentation is a key part of that.
I'm still going to push you for the lowest score we've seen.
I think I've done something that was 70-something.
Okay. Yeah. So pretty much anybody who bothers to enter is...
Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, to get to that level, you're still very, very good. I mean, if I was to put in my Spider, it would probably get 70-something. But I know umpteen things that need to be done. It
doesn't lose points for running on 3 cylinders, then?
No, it wouldn't, actually. It might do. It would be a bit noisy. When we start it up, it would be a bit noisy, yes. It would.
But you do make us start the engines up so that you can at least hear the
engines. And we run through lights and things like that. Yeah, sort of lights and... your indicators and brake lights and things. So the car is expected to be operational, be able to be usable on the road, sort of thing. So it's part of the whole thing. You can't just turn up with something straight out of the box. Like any car that goes through a restoration process, it's going to tell you, you find things like one of your taillights, the earth isn't working, so your taillight doesn't work or something.
It's not working on an Italian car. I find that very hard to believe.
So there's always a troubleshooting period you go through, and it's sort of just one of the standard things. I mean, I'm sure Gary has a routine that he follows.
I do.
The sort of serious guys have a routine that they follow when they are preparing their car for a show.
So we'll come on to that in a second. So, you may or may not be able to hear in the background some bird song, and so there is a reason why we're out in the middle of nowhere doing this as an outside broadcast, and that we have Gary's car with us. Gary, tell us a little bit about the history of the car. How long have you owned it, and what sort of things have you done to it in your ownership?
It'll be coming up for its 10th birthday with me, so I bought it back in 2016. I'm actually only the fourth owner of the car, and actually, technically, I suppose you could say only the second owner to actually drive the car. So the first owner was quite an interesting character. He basically lived on the south coast in Christchurch, but he had his job in central London and commuted to London every day from Christchurch. And one day he passed the garage in central London and he saw the car for sale and he says, I'm going to have that. And he bought it. And thereafter, he then used it every day for his commuter car between the south coast and central London. Hence, it's actually, I don't know the exact mileage, unfortunately. So it is over 100,000. So it's gone round the clock because it was a commuter car. He was an elderly gentleman and he owned it up until around about 85, 86, something like that. It's funny, actually, because all four owners are sort of all slightly connected. The second owner was the first owner's friend, and he also had a Spider 1300. Boattail Junior, and he basically knocked about with the first owner and very good friends. And as the first owner was sort of like advancing in years, he helped him out with his maintenance and everything like that, and just helped him keep it on the road and keep driving. And one day it basically went through a bit of a restoration at the time, because it was actually then painted blue with a red interior, because he just fancied a change in the colour. So he ran it for as long as he could, and it got to a point where the head gasket went, and the second owner, first owner's friend, was basically sort of like says, yeah, well, let's rebuild the engine for you. Let's do this. So he was stripped down the engine, and then halfway through that, the first owner sort of like said, you know what, I've had enough now. You can have the car. So he actually gave the second owner the car for his friendship. So the second owner, he worked on the oil rigs, I think, so didn't have a lot of time to spend at home. And he basically was always of the intention to get it fully restored, but he never did. So it just got put underneath a tarpaulin and just got moved around with various house moves. Luckily for it, it was always stored on tarmac, concrete, that sort of stuff. If it was stored on grass, we wouldn't be here today. He basically never got round to it, but he also had a friend who did restore cars as a hobby. And he sort of like said to him, look, I'll restore it. So I'll restore your 1300 Junior, and in exchange, I'll give you this. So that's how the third owner ended up with this and restored it. Having learned how to restore boat tails from the 1300 he's just done.
So he made all the mistakes on the first one, isn't it?
That's how I like to think about it, yes. So basically he was, as I said, he was an aircraft engineer, and as with anybody in this sort of like classic car hobby, we all get different things out of it. Some people are drivers, some people are polishers, some people are restorers, and this guy was a restorer. The enjoyment that he got out of it was restoring it, and then as soon as he tightened the last nut and bolt, that was it, not interested, and put it up for sale, and that's where I came in. So I saw the advert in Car and Classic, and there was this one and one other up in Edinburgh, and this was up for sale in Swindon, which is not that far away, so I thought I'd go and see that. So knocked on the guy's door. I had a big nice double garage with a remote garage door, and he sort of says, I'll see you out the front, in front of the garage. So I met him out the front, and as the garage door lifted and lifted, I saw the back end of the Duetto.
Took your checkbook out.
That's it. Bought it there and then. So that's a potted history and how I basically ended up with it.
And how much have you had to do in the 10 years subsequent, given that it was bought fully nut and bolt restored?
Yeah. Yes, it was nut and bolt restored because it was a non-runner basically, and it was full of holes and everything like that, all the usual stuff. So it did need restoring, and fair play to the guy, he got it back on the road and he got it as a usable car again. But he was, as I said, he wasn't an Alfa specialist, so therefore he didn't necessarily do things as per correct specification. He was actually more to do with sort of like, I want to drive this, although we didn't. He was more, sort of like after sort of like reliability and modern day traffic and making sure it used this, that and the other to be able to cope with the modern day road, which is not me. So as a result, yes, it was a restored working car, but I wasn't happy with it. It was a good base for me. So in effect, I've basically gone round the entire car all over again from top to bottom. back to front. And so I've had, the boot lid, which is unobtainable, has been re-sculptured. All the floors have been replaced. Doors have all been redone and realigned because...
I'd like to point out that the first time I judged his car, which is some years ago now,
yes.
the shut lines were not good and the bottom of the doors were standing half an inch proud of the
yes,
sills.
They were. Yes.
I was actually scrolling through some old photos and I think it's like 2019 National Alpha Day.
Yep.
There's a picture of the car there.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the first times I got involved with judging in the Alpha world anyway.
Yeah, so, I can vouch for the fact that lots of things have improved over time. It didn't win concours.
No, it didn't.
Did it win best in class? It did.
Yes,
didn't
it did. Yeah. But not every year either. So.
And then it got a second in class, I think.
Yes.
So he has improved it a huge amount over time.
Yeah. And anyone, Gary can give you chapter and verse on it, I'm sure, but anyone who looks, a Duetto is quite a unique shaped car, but when you actually look at it in detail, it's a very complex shape as well. So getting things like boot lid fit and door fit and stuff is really, really difficult. I've owned my GTV for 38 years. I got my first GTV in 1985 and I thought over time, done a lot with these cars. I've rebuilt them and pulled them apart and put them back together and stuff. And I think I know a lot, but every day, if you study them, you learn new things about them. And Gary can probably vouch for, you look at the way there's odd little bits. If you know Duettos, and the way they go together, there's odd little bits like where the boot lid and the tail light and the rear wing and the valance underneath all go together. If a car's been restored properly, you can tell it's got certain things about in the shape of that. If a car hasn't been restored properly, you can look at it and go, they mucked up this bit, and hence it's that experience and understanding and looking at cars and looking at photos and things like that guides your work to get things correct. And that can be the difference between a winning car and, a guy might have spent more money than Gary on having his nice shiny Duetto, but
there must be a lot of things that people wouldn't necessarily know. We were talking about this before we started the recording.
Yeah.
Your car's beautiful, but it would lose some points for the colour because it's not an original... assuming the judges knew that was not an original colour.
But, my car is very much the show and shine style of thing as opposed to the concours type of thing. I drive my car. I've done 140,000 miles in my car, and I try and do the 3,000 mile a year insurance limit as much as I can. And it needs stuff, I fix it and keep going. But that's my particular thing. But I understand and appreciate and recognise the effort that Gary and all the concours entrants put into their car. I suppose I'm guided by, there was a guy in South Australia that I met years and years ago. He's now dead, passed away. He had a very nice 1600 GTV. His name was Trevor Fay, and he used to write articles and sign them off as Targa Florio, but that's by the by. but we've all been around Alphas for a long time. We've all had the jokes about rusty, unreliable things. Yeah, I've heard of all that before. I've had my car since 1989. So what's that, 37 years. Done 140,000 miles. It's never failed to get me home. So that's my sort of counter to that. Trevor's approach and the way he viewed things was that, okay, to counteract the argument about they're all rusty, they all fall apart, all that sort of stuff, present your car in as best you can. Don't drive it around with mud and crap all over it and rust holes hanging out the side and things like that, unless you want the rat rod look. But
it's not common amongst Alfa owners.
No.
I have seen a couple, but not many.
Yeah, but make an effort. It's like the best way to counter that argument about them being rusty and unreliable things is present it and use it. I thought that's a good philosophy.
The other thing I'd say about the Duetto is when it's perfect, it is absolutely stunning. So the effort is worth it. And if it's not been done entirely right, you suddenly start realising that when you're looking at them. And
it's in the right colour as well.
Yes.
It's
not red. You can't have a red Osso di Seppia, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you said it was blue at one point, but
yes,
it was white originally.
Oh, yes. So I've met, it has been restored to factory.
Colour,
yeah.
So we talked about originality being really important. How do you know what's correct?
So it's a lot of research and a lot of sort of like looking around on the internet and on forums and things like that. We all know that back in the 60s, Alfa was not great with keeping any sort of records, or very scant records. So it's basically a case of where, I mean, even when you ask for the certificates of the originality, you're just going to get sort of like the exterior colour and the interior colour and which country was it exported to. And that's about your lot. So finding out what is original, or what we believe, I think is what we believe, and a common understanding of what
I always remember getting the Haynes manual for the Alfa Sud, and I think the first page was a list of all the carburettors it might have had that would still have been original. It's just what they happened to have that month.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much a case of, when you talk about the Duetto, it's sort of like it's a case of, because the Duetto was built sort of like basically in two halves. It was sort of like the bodies were built by Pininfarina and basically put on a shelf. And it wasn't until sort of like Alfa decided, it's a Thursday, let's build some Duettos. We'll get a shell off the shelf and we'll put some mechanicals in it and make a Duetto. And it was sort of like, well, it comes down to, I mean, a common one with this is brakes. What should it have on? Well, you can't say, because A, there was no records, and B, it was just, well, whatever they had in stock at the time. Was it ATE or was it Dunlop? There's no record.
But the point you're making there is for that particular chassis number, and we're not going to know which chassis number had which parts on. All we will know is that whether or not what you've got on it is an authentic factory supplied set.
Yes.
There are various sources. I mean, you've talked with some. One of the sources, now, I, for my sins, actually work in the classic Ferrari world at Maranello Classic Parts, and that has become a big money deal about having your car original and Classic A certified, which I can offer opinions on, but that's not relevant here and now. But a big part of things that people trying to chase down, what changed at what chassis number, and you're relying on the fact that at sort of 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, Luigi sat down and wrote on the build sheet that he'd fitted a Bosch alternator and ATE brakes and stuff. Like,
I'm lucky enough to have pretty much the full set of the Patrick Dasser books.
Yes, now
which
that's
kind of go through in little batches of chassis numbers, but with notes on the variations within those chassis numbers.
No, I do use those books as one of the things.
But one of the sort of best sources that anyone can sort of rely on to some extent is the parts manual with all the book with all the exploded diagrams.
That
shows you. I mean, I know in the Ferrari world we use it. In the Ferrari parts world we use them all the time, and in the Alfa world it gives you an idea of, okay, it should have this little bit, little rubber strip under the trim along the top of the door, or it should have some extra little bit that most cars don't have, because when they get repainted, people just put the thing back on and forget about putting the rubber strip underneath it. And there's lots of little details.
There were a number of clips on the felts and all those sorts of things.
I was at the museum shortly before we recorded this podcast with one of the Concours judges, and there was a 1300 boat tail Spider on display, and John's first reaction was, it's got no headlight covers, and it hasn't even got the clips for the headlight covers, so it looks as though it never had headlight covers.
And that's eminently possible.
I mean, what made me look actually was that, to find out what exactly is this. Well, they have 5 Duettos on show at the moment in the museum.
Duettos or boat tail Spiders?
Boat tail Spiders. I was about to correct myself. 3 were Duettos.
There's 3 variants.
A white one and a red one. I remember what the other colour was. We did look on the photos, but it doesn't really matter.
For those who are regular podcast listeners, but not necessarily club members and magazine riders, I was corrected on one of our cover photos a couple of issues ago. So thanks, Ken Carrington, for the correction.
Ken would, yes, I'm sure.
But ultimately, with all of these, like, I can walk up to any of the GTVs, and they've probably a handful of them around the world. When I was repainting my car and reassembling my car, I had the good fortune that about 2 miles down the road from me was a guy who had a 2000 GTV that had done 6,000 miles from new. And it was a complicated story from an estate from a guy in Melbourne who had a brand new, never used camtail Spider. So this camtail Spider sat in blocks in an undercover garage and was not registered until 2000 or something like that. It did no miles from 1975 to 2000. But this guy also had a 2000 GTV. And what strikes you is how averagely they're built. If you open opened the bonnet on this car, amazingly original and things like that. But it's like, they'd painted the car, but the paint hadn't sort of filled in all the gutters around the bonnet when you open the bonnet. So you could see primer around all the bonnet.
So would you lose fewer marks for having a car that was as badly built as...
I think we should actually remove marks from Gary's. It's got too much paint. That's an interesting point, though, because I've actually subtracted marks off people. I may have done this with you as well, Gary. Really? On the underside of the boot lid, very often the cross members that stress it, there's far too much paint on them. They're supposed to be...
You were even talking about the length of the welds on the...
the length of the welds on an Alfa Sud TI bonnet. The welds only go for like 2/3 of the length of the bonnet or something like that.
On a lot of the restored cars, they go the whole way.
Yes, exactly, or whatever they felt like.
Yeah. But there's always a balance there, because you're trying to sort of preserve the thing, and you wouldn't, build quality, materials quality, paint quality is much better than it was 60
and it's
years
an
ago.
important point to make, because we want to encourage people to enter. We don't want people to be intimidated by the fact they've got to have a
to be honest,
perfect car.
That Alfa Sud TI was TIX that won a few years ago as well, in white. Why is it white cars win? I don't know. Anyway, the TIX...
It's the best colour.
Is it impossible? Because it's a parts bin special anyway. But I would give an extra mark for the welding under the bonnet rather than take one off everybody else, because it's just, attention to detail.
I think I've corrected that, by the way, now.
You corrected that years ago.
But ultimately, we're not here to judge the owners or anything. We're here to judge the cars and to at the end of the day, determine the best car. I mean, we had the challenge last year of the Mitch's amazingly preserved 155 versus a fully restored Duetto, and there's no right or wrong answer. If we had two trophies, we could equally have given them two trophies. It's both of them had enormous levels of presentation involved with it, and it's the debate about, is restoring a car and presenting it more difficult than preserving a car and presenting it. But either way, they were both amazing to see. And I would encourage anybody, when they come along to National Alpha Day, come along, have a look at the cars, and if they have any questions about the judging and stuff, John and I and the other judges are around, and we can talk to you about what we're looking at. When you have a look underneath the bonnet of Gary's car, and you just see the amazing, not only cleanliness, but the attention to detail, and it's ultimately about the attention to detail and doing it right, getting it right. And I'm sure that's your satisfaction.
Yes, it is.
Some people's satisfaction is hitting that apex perfectly.
Like we said before, it's sort of like we all get different things out of the hobby, and it's sort of like I admit it. I'm the more the polisher and the presentation rather than the driver.
We've talked about what we're aiming for and what the judges are looking for. Talk us through what you actually do in advance of National Alpha Day to get the car ready to make it presentable as well as original. And
the presentation of the car is my routine is very bespoke. It's bespoke to the car and it's bespoke to me. So yes, my routine is very bespoke to the car and to me, because there are a lot of products out there. And as you know, sort of like John Griffiths does a great article piece in the magazine each month about all this detailing products and everything like that. Which I buy as a result of reading his article. I never use them. I've got a garage full of all those products. Yes. And I went through that stage as well. But I think I've settled down now. And it's a sort of like, it's sort of like the new next thing, the new big thing type thing. This'll cure it all. This'll do everything. The Duetto here it is basically, it is a show car. I do drive it, yes, but it is primarily a show car. So hence, it is not a daily driver. So therefore, the products that I use don't need to last 3 months. They don't need to repel water and salt and grit and they don't need that. So I actually use quite a light touch. In effect, I use possibly quite a controversial product, which is sort of like Maguire's wash and wax. But it's the technique that you use.
I thought you were going to say Fairy Liquid for a
minute. No. No sponge. No. But I find that I use that effectively like a quick detailer. And because if it's raining, I'm not taking the car out. Then that's me. I know that's me. So basically, the car never gets really dirty. So therefore, I operate the policy of a little and often. So if I'm getting ready for a show or something like that, as I did coming here, it was basically a case of I would just give it a quick wipe down with a quick wax and quick detailer. And it's just basically keep on top of it. don't let it get dirty. And then for something like if I'm preparing for the National or anything like that, in a way, I actually prefer to not do an awful lot of preparation beforehand anyway.
So there's not some great spreadsheet or Gantt chart of all the things you can do from 4 weeks out?
No. Because it never gets really dirty, I can sort of leave it to the last minute. And that's not because I'm being lazy, it's because I feel as though I like to get to the show. And as you already said, John, is sort of like with fly splatter and stuff like that, I would always wipe it down anyway. So I just take that a little further, and I would do the majority, if not all of my prep at the show. Get there nice and early.
If you get there early enough, you've got an hour and a bit, I think hour and a half before we start looking properly.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because you sort of like, you usually come around about like 11ish or something like that, maybe. So I would be there as soon as the gates open, set up, and that's where my prep starts. So I would go effectively, the only thing I would do before going is, and this sounds possibly daft, but I hoover the roof because it's material, it's mohair, and it gets dusty. It's getting dusty right now. So I've got a nice little cordless, handless hoover. Just give it a quick hoover over first. That's mostly the only thing I would possibly do before the show. Then get there and then completely wipe it. I would do, obviously, clean the glass. I find that the glass is sort of like, it's quite telling. I like nice, clean glass. Not only because of the bug splats, but I think it looks nice and shiny and streak-free and everything like that. So I just use Maguire's glass cleaner for that with a nice fresh cloth. Then I would go over it from top to bottom, literally top, starting at the top and then going round and down with multiple sort of like toweling cloths, not necessarily microfiber cloths, but sort of like a longer, is it twill? I can't remember what that's the term is.
Pile.
Something. Yes, something like that. Yes. I would use sort of like
John will correct us if we're wrong.
Yes.
No idea.
Completely
alien to me, all of this.
I know, I've seen the cloths you've got in the back of your car.
Yeah.
So this one's quite clean, he said, holding up something that I wouldn't clean my wheels with.
No. You've got to swap them out. You've got to fold them over and you've got to fold them over and then use so many times and you're on to the next one after that. A nice clean one. Yeah, so my boot is full of towels and you go through them. So you can never have so many.
No.
So basically you just got like round and round and just gradually work down to the bottom of the car. And then I would finish off with the wheels and the tyres and then go into the interior. And it's the Duetto, I don't think is unique, but I mean, it has a lot of rubber for its internals. So there are a lot of rubber mats, both in the boot and in the cabin. And I find that they are quite hard to detail. So I use, as I said to you before, I use basically the Maguire's wash and wax as a complete detailer for the majority of the car. And again, this comes back to the fact that it's not very dirty in the first place because I'm always trying to keep on top of it. So the only other products that I would use would be in the engine bay, where I would change my product. So the products that I would use in the engine bay is something, well, I actually use two of them. There's a sort of, I can't remember the proper name of it now, but it's a German detailing product, which I think was actually developed for Mercedes. And basically, it's one of those things that you just sort of like, you spray on quite lightly and then you just leave it. And it just forms a nice sort of like satin, not blingy, satin sort of like finish to it. But I also find that you wouldn't think so, but this is actually stored in an unheated garage, which is not the greatest of things to store an Alfa in. So I have sort of like quite a few issues over the winter with sort of like condensation and things like that, which wreaks havoc on sort of like engine bay fittings and things like that. So what I've found is I use I think it's an aeronautical thing. I think it's called ACF 50, which is quite oil based.
Yes,
have you used that?
Yes, I use it as well. Yes.
Yeah, and it's very sort of like oily and slimy, and it sounds horrible.
In a spray can.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever seen John Griffiths write about this. Have you?
He'll pick this up. It is extremely good for preserving, especially aluminium castings.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get sort of white, white powder on them.
I don't know whether, because Ian Osborne, who enters concours with one of his 166 or 164 every time, he has huge problems with the aluminium bits and pieces in the engine bay in those cars. I don't know whether or not either of them are used a lot.
ACF 50. It was
purple, isn't it? It comes in quite a big bottle and stuff like that. So so I use that mainly not during the summer because obviously the conditions are fine, but over the winter I would use that when I was sort of like basically storing the car. But you mentioned the aluminium side of it, and it was basically a case of there's a lot of aluminium on show, obviously with the top of the engine, the cam cover, but I've also got the plenum which goes right over the top of it and everything like that. I didn't want to sort of like paint it or anything like that. I didn't want it to look painted. I wanted it to look fresh aluminium. So as a result, what I did was I got it bead blasted and then coated, ceramic coated, just clear coated, again in a sort of like a satin finish. So it gives the impression that it's fresh new aluminium.
I can feel a point coming off now for the non-original ceramic coating.
Well, look, Don, you say this, I know that since last year he's had the engine bay repainted, so I know we should have knocked marks off last year as well.
But asking just for my own interest, because I know I care about my car and I put it, I try and give it a spring clean where I take the wheels off and clean in each wheel well, and I pull the grill off and clean all the bugs and stuff off the front of the radiator. And that sort of thing.
I'm constantly taking the bumper off to try and get into the back end of it.
so you do part of that sort of thing as well as like a once a year type of
thing. So
it's
basically if anything needs to come off the car, then I don't just sort of like take it off and repair it or something and then put it straight back on again. I would always sort of like take the part and then meticulously clean the part in terms of and as well as repairing it before putting it back on again. And then with the Duetto, because of the nose on this, it's basically there's quite a lot. There's a big cavity right at the front of the car. So there's actually sort of like maybe like 2 foot before you actually get to the radiator, and it's just a big cavern. And it just loves collecting flies and bugs and God knows what when you're driving along. Yeah. But the only way to really properly get into it is actually take the heart off the front. Yeah. So I basically take the grill, the heart grill off, and then I can get in. To behind.
I get it. I do the same thing with the GTV.
Yes.
Sort of thing. Just once a year you make.
I would do that before each show. The other one as well is
so I don't do anything except give you a quick wipe over the show. Apart from take the bumper off, take the Duetto off.
And amazingly, Gary, Andrew and I don't try and get our heads in there to see whether or not we've done it.
Haven't done up until now.
But
we're not going to.
We don't. But that's also the thing. You've also ultimately, as a judge, you look at these things and potentially it can be a distracting technique, and that's like laying out all the books and things like that. You get distracted by the books and you miss some point on the car, which is again
under the book.
Yeah, part of the game.
We do lift floor mats and things like that, and make sure the carpet's still in one piece underneath, all that sort of stuff.
You're welcome to lift the car mats.
I know. The rubber mats, you can't really lift them very.
Yeah, you can go back to the paint on this one.
But it's ultimately, if Gary's presented his car a number of years, you know and understand the level of preparation and presentation.
I learned because every time you guys judge it, I sort of like I always try to sort of like obviously think.
I only got 100 points, Nick, this year. What can I do to get?
How can I improve
100 points again next year?
Interestingly though, Andrew is talking about adding a few things to the judging criteria, so it could make things tougher for everybody. Yeah.
So let's assume that we haven't put everybody off now by
I'm sure we
what
have.
the judges are looking for and what we need to do to prepare. John, what do people actually need to do if they want to enter into the concours?
Okay. Well, Nick Wright, as our club manager, will collect entrants at the end of the day. He will put out some email or some notices on our various social media channels saying now is the time to
in the next couple of weeks, presumably.
Fairly soon. I'm not sure exactly what the plan is.
Yeah,
so it gives you 6 weeks from now or something like that, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's about that.
Yep. I better get Star Prairie.
Yeah, so he will invite applicants to let him know what the car is, who they are, and so on. Yeah, we'll get about 15 or 20 entrants with any luck. But you just need to fill in a simple form, and Gary probably knows better than I do exactly what you have to fill in.
Yeah.
But it's just what is the car? I have in the past used gaps in the applicants to try and encourage registrars to find people to enter something. You don't usually have a problem in the 105 series. You don't usually have a problem. There's usually a GTV 6 or 2. And we've been getting 166s actually more commonly than anything else for some reason.
And apart from the 10-year cut-off. You wouldn't turn a car down once you get an entry.
If it's entered, it's entered, yeah. I mean, if the car is not a concours and it's been entered, then fine, it will get judged. We will try to spend time after the judging to talk to the owners if they want to know why something isn't right. We usually give some indication as we're judging it. If there's something, we'll point something out, yeah.
And judging starts reasonably early in the day, doesn't it?
11-ish,
If you're the kind of person who turns up at lunchtime,
you have to be in place by 11.
Yeah, it's like ultimately it's a sport, whether it's you're going racing or playing golf or whatever. There's a certain rules you have to turn up on time. If you have a convertible car, you've got to present it with the roof up. You should have your books and tools effectively. Guys have lost
points because
over the years. They went,
yeah.
I left the toolkit at home. Okay, that's
having the roof up contradicts all of my rules of convertible ownership.
Well, you can put it down once the judging is over. We only have to judge it with the roof up.
Actually, we do ask them to open it usually, don't we?
Yeah. You'd want to know it works.
Yeah.
Presumably.
Yeah. No,
if it was a 939 Spider, I'd want to know it works.
Well,
I used to put it down.
But yeah, there are some easy wins, and make sure you have your handbook and any other publications that are relevant. Make sure you have your toolkit. All the cars came with a toolkit when they were new. Don't leave it at home in the garage because that'll cost you. It could be the difference between winning your class and losing.
Yeah. No, and I think as you said, if you talk to the entrants afterwards, if they want to, I've learnt from you guys each year that I've done this and tried to sort of like better it next time. Or if I lost some in a particular area, then I try and improve on that for next time. So it's a learning process for me.
And also, I guess there's a bit of to and fro with the owners of the other cars. You're looking at, they might not necessarily be your opposition in your class sort of thing, but you look at 155 or something and you discuss about, okay, how did you make this bit look better?
Yes.
And
it's
learning the techniques and things like that.
If there's something I like on somebody else's car about how they've restored it, then I'll see if I can seek them out and find out how they did it. And
what's the
maybe
great
use it.
Picasso quote? Good artist copy, great artist steal. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and I look forward to seeing you all at Bicester in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Guy. I hope you'll come around and have a look at judging.
Come along and celebrate my birthday at Bicester.
Oh, excellent. Well, happy birthday in advance.
Oh, cake's on you.
That's it for this episode. You'll find a link for ACF 50, which Gary mentioned in the podcast, and to a video of his car at Brooklands at Auto Italia's Italian Car Day in the show notes. We'll be back in 4 weeks' time on Sunday the 2nd of August with our annual National Alpha Day preview. Episode 124 will be available to download from 1:30 p.m. from YouTube, the club's website, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, Podcast Addict, and everywhere else good podcasts are found. Until then, stay safe.